Zambia Blog Talk Radio.
Do you want to promote your business on Zambia Broad Talk Radio? Yes, that's right. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio. To book your spot, just make a donation by picking from the following categories. To get started, just call or WhatsApp the number on the screen and you'll be good to go. Live on Zambia Broad Talk Radio every Saturday for 1 full month. And it will stay on the recorded shows.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It is Saturday, April the 9th. We do appreciate you. Good afternoon, Europe. Good afternoon, Zambia. Good evening, the Western Pacific world. And good morning, America, and whichever part of the world you're listening us from. Let me welcome my good friend here, whom I have missed so much. Hello, hello.
I hope I'm not looking sleepy. Yeah.
Resurrection.
I resurrected. Yeah.
How are you, my good friend?
I'm here, Nathan. Thank you so much. I'm doing well. I can't complain.
That's good. And before we forget, big event back home in Zambia today. Our good friends, the Happy Kuomboka. Is that the way
That
we
is
say
correct. Yes.
it? We say Happy Kuomboka.
In Vielui.
In Yalui, a big thing is going on up there in Zambia. We trust you have all found your way to Western Province and joining our people of the Lozi Kingdom as they celebrate Kuomboka. Roger, this is what I wanted to say before we introduce our guest this morning. The African diaspora is growing. And
Yes.
it continues to grow.
Yes.
And here is the thing. What we need to bear in mind, or what we need to remember, not to overlook, is that our kids are growing too.
That's correct.
Okay, our kids are growing too. The subject today is land ownership in the US. And somehow I think that as a people, we have been duped to think in a certain way. Number one, let's remember that our kids are growing. Roger, your son doesn't know where Riverside is.
Correct.
Look, he doesn't know where Minhood or Ibex Hill and all these places are. If you're from West Africa or Ghana, your kids don't know where East Lagoon is. They don't know the most affluent place in Nairobi, Addis Ababa, Johannesburg, or these places. So we need to brace ourselves and the kids need to have all the resources at their disposal for investment opportunities as they live in this country or wherever you are, Australia, Canada. So that is what this show is about today. It's about us bracing ourselves. I cannot force my kids to go and invest in where? In Newcastle, somewhere where they don't know. They live in Dallas. That's where they're going to do their investments. Okay. Our guest today is an ordained minister. She is a grief support counselor. She is an entrepreneur. She runs a foundation after her late mother's name, Teresa Boateng Foundation. She is a professional or certified landman. And our guest is Miss Thelma Osei. She lives in my neighborhood. She's joining us today. Hi, Thelma.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What do you think about the comments I just made about our kids, us having, preparing the groundwork and opportunities for our kids to invest where we are right here? You can't force your daughter to go and invest in Accra where she doesn't live.
Yeah, no, it's very on point. I'm a 1.5 generation, so I grew up here. So definitely what you're saying is very true. I came here when I was 5. And I've been here over 30 years. So.
Oh my goodness. You see that now? So that's what it's all about. Okay, let's begin our discussion today.
Okay.
like I said to you when we were talking behind the scenes as we're preparing for this show, Roger, I've never heard of who a landman is, a professional landman. So let's begin from there, Thelma. Tell us, who is a landman and what does your job entail?
Sure. A landman, if I could also add that, has very little people of color or minorities in that particular profession.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, all it is you work with the oil and gas company, the energy companies, and you're the middle person approaching the landowners so that you
Mm.
can acquire and negotiate the leases. You know, you have what's called mineral rights, or if they have oil on their property, you're the one that approaches to go ahead and negotiate the deal between the landowner and the
Mm-hmm.
energy companies so that they can get their royalty checks if they agree to the terms.
Okay, so that is if the what you call it. This is a situation where they find resources on your land, right?
That's correct. And
So
that's why we
you
should buy
so
land.
uh
I said more reasons why we should buy land.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So you are basically like the middle person, the broker, the agent between the landowner and the energy companies, right? Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
and you do contracts. Yes, that's correct.
You do
So,
contracts. All
mhm.
right. Excellent. So then if you are basically about the what do you call it, energy companies and landowners, where does the concept of you finding or sourcing lands for individual people, families come into the picture?
Sure. So that's one portion. But the other thing I do is land management. I basically help other people in terms of the location of the land, how to make your land valuable. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what can you do? And that's entails land management. You have tax benefits. Keep in mind, especially in America,
Mm.
there's ways to basically never pay taxes on your property. Not that I'm so there's so that's what land management does, you know,
All
land
right.
management consulting. Yes.
Mm,
Mhm.
interesting. What prompted you to get into this? How did you find yourself into this line of work? A very obscure sector in the business world. What prompted you? How did you find yourself in this?
Yeah. So what happened is my beloved mother, who went on to be with the Lord in 2020, she is the one that introduced each of her kids to this particular industry. Um, in 2017, one of her coworkers, whose husband is a landman,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of how it got started. In fact, we were dragging our feet because we were like, I don't think we're in a position we can go ahead and make this purchase. And he sat us down, he explained everything. He shared with us how easy it is to make the purchase. And my little 2 minute explanation of why people should do it is also keep in mind you when you look through the Word of God, it talks about land so much. The
Yes.
Bible is agricultural. Speaks about agriculture, and there's lots of mention of land, inherit the land, and you have war that's happening over land. So it tells you
Mm-hmm.
that land is something that's actually very important, to have. And so through my mother, through her coworker, we got introduced, and he was like, just go with me
Mm-hmm.
out there. We went to a land tour, we went to a land sale, went to a land auction, and then that's when we found out, oh my goodness, at each of these events, we were either the only people of color, the only black people, and I was like, wow, we are not in the game at all, and this is quite easy, and
Mm-hmm.
it requires so much more less money than purchasing a house. So
That's
that's what got
interesting.
started.
Yeah, that's the other component that I want us to get into this discussion to all our friends that are listening. Even if the title or theme or subject of our discussion today is land ownership in the United States,
Hmm.
I believe that each one of us, wherever we are living as people of color or Africans for that matter, whether we are in Europe, Australia, or Canada, or with my friend here, you say we take interest in this, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. So many reasons to purchase land. Just so many reasons. I don't know if that's what you would like me to, if it's okay to go into.
Yes, please go
Okay,
into it. I mean, what are the main,
sure.
go
So,
into it.
what I was sharing with people is, we all have watched those real estate shows,
Mm,
flipping houses and flipping this and that. But what they're not telling you is it's really, really capital intensive. You've got to have lots of money to do house real estate. Let's be realistic. Those people on the show, they had their own contractors. You
mhm,
would, if you go out and you make these purchases, and I'm not discouraging anyone in any way, I just want you to think about the full picture. You usually have to have a lot of money, but I do know some people who purchase those rundown houses, in like the hood, and then they build it up, and then you flip it. But the bottom line is you usually need a lot of money. And I personally wasn't in a position to have that type of money. If you're
mm,
purchasing a house, at least in this area, you're starting off at least at 260. But truly, especially as the housing, the amounts have gone up, you're really looking at 320 going, 320,000 going. And if you already have a mortgage, that's a lot of money to come up with. So that's one thing to consider. But the
mhm.
other thing too is, with those shows, so many people, especially in the area where me and you live, Pastor Nathan, the DFW area, it's saturated. Every other person is a realtor. That's something you have to think about. So the profession itself is just so saturated. And
Mm,
when you look at that, it makes it harder to make a profit, because also the other thing, at least in my neighborhood, the those that are purchasing land, housing, it's not individuals, but it's been those more companies, because they're going to rent it out or lease some, and you cannot compete because they can put an additional $20,000 on
mhm,
that. So that's one thing to consider. But for, I would say, most people, you can start land. You could start land with as little as $5,000. Or if you do one where you do a loan, and I have one and it's a 30-year loan, my payments are $72 a month, US dollars. So this is one way. The other thing with land is, if you look, especially in the American system,
yes.
most of our counterpartners, our white counterpartners, they have land and they're passing it on to their children and their grandkids. Think about the value when you talk about legacy.
Mhm,
Right? My mother, I always say I respect her because she gave us legacy. She bought two separate acreage, and she was able to pass that on to us, and we're going to keep that in the family. We're going to pass it on to our children. And I just think that's something, and also, if ever somebody gets in a bind financially, think about how you would be able to have the money, because you could sell that piece of property. And then I
yes.
also said, even like a landman, when you have land, I get letters all the time from developers. And this is the thing that I was able to sell two pieces of property last year, and it equaled my salary, more than my salary as a chaplain at the hospital. That's when I knew I was in the right game. Because also, don't forget, especially in this particular area, I'm not sure where everyone is from, but in
Mm,
Texas, we are basically the number one state for where others are migrating to, right?
yes,
And
yes.
with the housing, with what's happening with housing, is basically we don't have enough housing. We don't have enough builders. We're not building fast enough. So if you look, they're putting up apartments here and here. Well, here's
Mm,
the thing. Have you ever thought about who owns that dirt that you're building on?
mm,
Or so I got approached by a company, a developer, by an actual company, and they said, we need your land. We would like to put a restaurant on here, right?
mm.
And they pay you. So you have two options. You can lease that out to them, or in my case, they just purchase it outright. And also, so
Wait. So so what you are saying is that I can lease out my land? We,
yes, in America, we can lease land.
how does that work? Explain. How does that work? I'm sure Bella is listening, is like, huh?
Sure.
So how does leasing, because here with what you have explained, I'm going to throw three questions at you. I hope you can handle them because this information can be a bit overwhelming. So somebody's listening to this, the explanation that you have given them, and they were like, okay, $5,000, that may sound cheap, but I still need to develop the land. That's the first argument. Number two, I can lease out my land. I want you to address those 2 points.
Sure. So, I'm trying to see where I should start. Well, so first of all, when you're thinking about making the land purchase, the
Mhm.
first thing you ask is what type of land you would like to purchase, and
Yes.
based on that type of land that you do purchase, right? That then opens up the rest of the opportunity. So let's say you purchase land. It could be that it's residential, but it's near a city, a town, or developments, right? Or you purchase land that's commercial, right?
Mhm.
So when you purchase something, and what's happening, like I said, once again in my particular area of Texas, is Texas has a lot of rural areas, meaning areas that's more country. It's not
Yes.
city, it's not urban. So a lot of those particular land, even when you do your research, you'll notice that Bill Gates and Elon Musk have been purchasing farmland in all these rural cities. Well, what that means for you and me is, we'll take an example, Brownsville, Texas. That's in South Texas. And that was an area that is very country and rural. Okay, for me to just keep it simple, very country and rural. And nobody really paid attention to Brownsville, Texas. And land was extraordinarily cheap in that particular area. Well, Elon Musk comes and says, hey, I'm going to build a center there, which he's doing, right? So what happens with property? Well, property value goes up.
Goes
So
up.
now, if you own a piece of property, because it's an area where there's a lot of mobile homes, a lot of RV
Mhm.
type of, vehicles. And so those land that the mobile home and the RV individuals are using, that may not be their property. And if that's something you have, you can lease that. You could lease it to individuals for camping. I have an RV lot I lease out, meaning that people use my land to come and park their RV to do their camping, and they
Mhm.
pay me a daily rate for that. So you can lease your land also to companies. If I'm trying to think of a national Chick-fil-A, a national brand, if
Mm.
Chick-fil-A or I don't know, Burger King or McDonald's wants to build, they can
Yes.
approach you and you have the option where is it going to be leased? A lot of stores, the land that they're on may not actually be theirs. They may be leasing that out. 7-Eleven is 7-Eleven, the gas station is very famous for doing that, where they
Wow.
lease and land out. So that's one way you can make money, or you could also let them purchase it outright. But you have individual leasing. Yeah, people do a lot of camping, RV, and
Mm.
mobile home where you can lease it to them, or you could do businesses and you can lease it. I know that I did research as a landman. I have a software to do research on the land,
Yes.
and I did research on this Walgreens by my house, and I learned that the land doesn't even belong to them.
Wow.
And I said, wow.
Bella, let's go make the money. Bella, let's go
So
make the
there,
money.
someone is getting rich.
Yes, somebody's getting rich, and Roger, we are busy doing what do you call it? We are focusing on other things. So good points there, Thelma. Very interesting information, and that's the reason we're doing this show today. Because I'm telling you, everybody watching, listening, when I had a conversation with this lady, I was just like this, Roger. I'm saying to myself, oh wow, we are so focused on doing some other stuff. And I was thinking about you, my good friend, and the global thing that you are doing with everybody across the world. I was thinking, my goodness, they can jump into this, get some land and start leasing it. Thelma, what are the categories of land, and what should one understand about these categories before any purchase is done?
Sure. I mean, I would really encourage, before you make any purchase, is always, get with people who know what they're doing, just like in any profession. Just get with people who know what they're doing. And I
Mhm.
wanted to say this, even when it comes to realtors, because some people are like, well, I'm going to use a realtor. You need to get someone who specializes in land. That's what, like, someone, I specialize in land, just like you
Mm,
might get someone who specializes in commercial offices or commercial building, because your regular realtor may not necessarily know what to look for. You see what I mean?
okay.
So it's very important that you do get someone who specializes in land. But when you talk about land, I talked about residential, right? I talked about residential. I talked about commercial,
Mm-hmm.
which for businesses, but also even in residential, there's different types of land. You can have farmland, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
also the other thing is you can lease your land to farmers. If you have that type of land, you can lease your land to farmers. You have lakefront property, property that's by the lake,
Mm,
where I encourage some of those where because the one that was purchased was a lakefront property that the company purchased from me, and those in that particular area because they want to develop like a community, a gated community. You also have like I said, the livestock land. Then you also have what's called timberland. Timberland is land full of wood, the wood that we use, the lumber that
yes.
we use for housing and furniture. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that there's almost zero people who look like us when I went to one of the events. That wow, you can own this. It kind of looks kind of like a forest, right?
Yes.
Then of course you have the mineral production land, and that's where I'm as a landman. I approach a lot of companies and individuals and people, right? So you have that. They have vineyard, those who grow wine,
Yes.
but there's
California
actually
people.
yeah, there's a lot, but I would just say if you're starting out, to be honest, you just start small. Like with anything, you're just putting your feet in the water. So
Mm,
just start small. You could just get a regular residential land under 10,000 and just start small from there. If you're able to, you can get a lakefront property. Sometimes, 19,000 going. So just start small and then go from there.
okay. Interesting. Let me, I will still ask this point. Start small and understand what is going on. So you have, I don't know whether this is correct. You have land Reuters. Is that what you call them?
Yes, but it's actually called land accredited consultant, right? The
Okay.
accredited land consultant,
Mm,
or like people like myself who do land management. The bottom line is reach out to people who specialize that. If you're reaching out to a realtor, it's so important that the realtor actually understands about land, farmland, raw land, what to look for. Just like with any purchase, you have pitfalls that you need to look for on the
yes.
land. You got to make sure flood, is it FEMA compliant? There's all these things
Mm,
that the individual needs to know.
okay. Right. What you're okay. Two questions on what you've just said. Number one, um, of course, how do I go about checking out somebody to say they really qualify to help me on the issues of land? Okay, how do I do that? Because of course, I'm not going to ask you directly to say, do you really know what you're doing? What's this about? Okay, number one, that's one. Number two, you just use the terminology here, FEMA compliant. What does that mean?
Sure. So, I mean, just like with anything, you could do research about them.
Mm-hmm.
There is a website. You can also check if they are accredited land. What's it called? Consultant. There is an actual resource with the
Accredited
organization.
land consultant.
Yeah, but I
Mhm.
mean, you'll know a realtor. That most realtors who deal with land, that's all they do.
Mm,
um that's all they do. They don't do too much housing, they don't do too much office commercials. They just deal with land. And I just came from a land conference, and like that's all the realtors that were there, that's all they do, just land, farmland, timberland, commercial land. That's all they do. But there is a website that you can check that out, and you can ask for their sales, of course. But the reason it's important, I want to stress to use them, is because there's different pitfalls in any industry or anything that you're doing. And when I talk about FEMA, like especially land that's by lakefront, by water, you know,
Yes.
there's guidelines, and you want to make sure that it's built upon the level, it's elevated.
Okay.
Yes, the level that FEMA has said. The other thing is also, like I said, you could do research on the land, which means that has there been a flood, has there been fire, you know, things of that sort is very important. So
Very interesting. Okay, everybody, our guest this morning, afternoon, wherever you're watching, is Pastor Thelma Osei. She's a certified professional landman. Like I keep saying, my friend Roger knows this. I like talking to pastors who don't just speak in tongues, but they're out there doing things, helping us get to understand what the issues of land and how to get about this. I'll be
hello, I'm
sure.
sorry, I cannot hear you.
You cannot hear me? You cannot hear me, Thelma? Okay, we lost communication here.
I can hear you. Can you
We
hear
can
me?
hear you.
So,
We can hear you. Can you hear us? We lost. What does she need to do, Roger?
I am not very sure. Maybe I'll write to her to turn off.
You need to probably turn off the thing and log back in. Okay, let me probably send her a message. And
I have.
nah, she's using the same phone. Turn off.
Okay, some very interesting
Information.
Yeah, very interesting information we've never heard about.
That's why I'm telling you, Roger, I said to myself, when we were...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we
Can you hear
you.
me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's fine. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry. I cannot hear you, but if you, I'll respond.
All right. You need to turn off your phone and come back again, log in again. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
Thelma.
All right.
Yeah, let's try to see if we can do that.
Yeah. We'll try and we'll fix it. Send me a number. I'll give her a call real quick.
Okay.
And then yeah.
Let's do that as we. Interesting discussion, people. Let me know what you think. Give me your thoughts in the chat room. I will be sharing Ms. Thelma's email momentarily here as we resolve our technical issues. And we shall be getting back to the discussion. Interesting stuff here. Everybody, we appreciate you. Hi, Matilda. Everybody, let us know where you're watching from. Oscar, let me just share Ms. Thelma's email here. Those of you watching us, I believe that wherever you are, like I said, whether you're in Australia, whether in Australia, I know the laws are totally different. You could be saying, well, this is about buying land in America, but what we're trying to do is just sort of get the general principle, understand some principles so that it sort of provokes you to get to that place where you develop interest. Because it's not always, we need to get out of the traditional way of thinking of what we need to get into business. Can you imagine you can lease land? Huh? Isn't that isn't that interesting? Okay, I just shared Miss Thelma's email there to everybody. And can you hear me, Thelma?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what happened. I can hear
That's okay. Technology, it's called technology, technology, technology.
you.
Yeah, that's what it is. So what were we talking about? You were explaining something.
I'll make it fast. I was just explaining basically you need to make sure that you're in contact with somebody who does know what they're doing, making sure that things that you need to look for,
Mhm,
pitfalls would be, or questions you should ask is, okay, first and foremost, is there an easement, like based on the location of the land? Do you have to have an easement agreement to go across somebody's property? You have to
mm,
look at that. Like I shared the water, the elevation of the water. You need to check, is it a property that easily floods? You don't
mhm,
want to get some kind of property and then you're having issues with flooding. That's going to be hard for you to sell. Then you have to look at, based on your future plans, or just in general, if somebody's going to, because you could do land flipping, which is basically you purchase land. That's what I do. I purchase land, you resell it, purchase land, you resell it. So,
mhm.
is it a property of, that you're going to need to have their own water, utility? You look at sewage. You also look at how close is a city, a hospital, right?
Okay.
That all these are some of the things that's very important. So, yes, that's what I would just like to share for now for that. But those are things that's very important. And then you also make sure that it has a clear title, which I'm able to assist you with that.
Oh, the issue of title comes up here too.
Oh, title's
I thought
everything.
it was an African problem.
Yes. Mhm.
Oh my God. So let's talk about land versus housing. I mean, somebody's like, look, if I'm going to, we have to dig into these things because there are some people who are difficult to convince. You know what I'm trying to say? Our
Yeah.
people are very difficult to convince. Somebody is saying, okay, I buy the land, I still need to develop it. Of course, we just learned now that it's not just a matter of developing the land. You can lease it, you can do a lot of things with it. So
Mhm.
why do you give the argument of the land versus housing? You gave me some interesting advice. I would like you to share with everybody watching.
Sure. I mean, number one, money. Money, because here's the thing, you need a lot of money. You need more money to do housing real estate. With
Mm-hmm.
land real estate, you can start at a low amount. You can start at an amount that works for you. It's more
Mm.
personalized and customized. So, my first purchase, or I should say, the first purchase that we did with our mother, we ended up doing three purchases with her. The first one, our property that we purchased was under 10,000. In
Wow.
2001, we sold that property for 45,000. I just want you to understand the difference in that short amount of time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the thing about it is dirt is not something that's easily reproduced, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
with housing, there is a shortage of housing. I want to share that, but it is not, you can build houses. You cannot
Yes.
reproduce land. Land is a commodity. You cannot reproduce it. It's not like a house that I'm going to go build another set of house. But especially for people, I would say, bicultural people such as myself, which is basically we're children of y'all that came first generation, and we're your kids, right?
Yeah.
In general, our parents have housing, but they don't have land, right? So land is also legacy. It's something that if you look at it, like in the American system or the American family, they usually have land and they pass it from one generation to another, one generation to another, right?
Mm.
But the main thing, also, like I said, honestly, and then there's tax benefits, is for people like us, our children are here. That's the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Yeah. Like
And
I said, mhm.
yeah, they're here. However,
The
you look
children
at it.
don't know where I bake. They don't know
I
anything
only go
about
visit
Ibex
Ghana
here. They
maybe
don't
once a
care.
year, and that's maybe. I visit
Mm.
Ghana once a year, but I live here. We breathe here. We live our lifestyle, our career, and everything is in the U.S. or abroad for those that are somewhere else. And the bottom line is also it's an opportunity to make money. I believe that this is a way that the Lord is given to the church, honestly, to get out of poverty. If you have a single mom and she's able to buy a plot under 10,000 or 5,000 and she holds on 6 months a year, she flips it, meaning that she sells it to receive income. You've
Mm-hmm.
changed somebody's life financially. You know, you've changed someone's life financially. It's a way to get people out of systematic poverty. And land ownership, the other thing is, especially for the blacks in the United States, starting the 1920 going, when you look at the history of land, land was stolen from them. The blacks used to actually own farmlands and that they would do grow your crops on, and it
Yes.
was stolen. And this is a type of way to have that restoration for those who that was the legacy of their family. But it's something that the more I keep going in the circles, the more that I see less and less people who look like me. And it's something I'm begging everyone, pray about it, think about it. But I know that the Lord is opening that door for us to also own land here in the United States
Yes,
or
I
abroad.
totally
Where
agree with you on that one. Somebody listening, they're like, I'm really interested, but I don't have money. Can land be financed?
Yes. So I want to tell y'all, when I started, I did not have the income. Believe it or not, chaplains don't make that much. I did not have the income. And the beautiful thing about land is it's not like housing. It's easier to negotiate price. It's easier to negotiate financing. So there
Mm.
is financing for land. It is not traditional financing. You cannot go to the big banks and say, "Can you give me financing for this piece of property?" They do more mortgages for housing, but not for land. But you have farmers credit unions, right?
Okay.
You do actually have credit. It's a smaller banks that all they do is what? Land loans, right?
Really?
Yes. And I'm telling you, when I learned all this, I was like, wow. So you have banks that they do land loans. Have you ever thought about the farmers? How do they get loans? They got to take loans for cattle. Cattle are $2,000 going, the US
Mm-hmm.
dollars. They got to get loans for their equipments, right?
Yes.
All that is their specialized banks, right? And here's the beautiful thing. These banks are they're more flexible,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have a piece of property, for me to get my second piece of land, what I did is I used my first piece of land as collateral. See?
Okay. They
Uh-huh.
definitely do need collateral, right?
Not necessarily. And no, not necessarily.
Ah,
Based on the type of property you buy, I have one property where the developer has their own in-house financing, right?
yes.
And then what I use, this is the first way I got my own property because I wasn't in a position to be able to do it. So what I did is it's called owner's financing. I'm sure some of you have
Mm,
heard about that. Or okay, so owner financing is basically if you're going to purchase a piece of land from me, I'm gonna do the agreement and the financing till you pay it off. And owner's financing is how, actually, to be honest, a lot of people get into the land game.
okay.
Yeah,
Mm.
owner financing. And then also I wanted to share this. I don't know if y'all are aware, but the United States has a program for you to purchase land.
They do?
They, yes,
How
they
does
do.
it work?
So the United States Department of Agriculture, based on the type of land, and they do have a program geared towards minorities purchasing land, and women purchasing land, and people of disability and Native Americans purchasing land. And here's the thing, I was unaware of all this before 2017, and I've been in America for a while. right? That they will help you, and that there is grants, and the USDA will help you with the type of land, and based on what you want to do, whether you want to do farming, timberland, they will help you with having a plan, because you have to have a land management plan. They will help you with all of that, and there is grants, especially if you plan on growing any crops or anything that will help you to get income so that you can make that land purchase.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
but I'm sure that many of us could start with, like I said, the smaller banks, because
Mm-hmm.
you're taking a smaller amount. So you
Yes.
take it. So the farmers credit union banks, right? You have heritage banks. That's all of a part of that. You're not going to get financing from the big banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America.
No, of course not. Them, they want to, they
Mhm.
want you to show some proper collateral and stuff like that. Let me show you one question here that somebody is asking. I hope you're
Sure.
able to read this. Are you able? What is the projected, is this ROI in buying just land?
Oh,
You
sure.
understand? We understand
Yes,
that.
yes,
What are the
yes.
factors that appreciate the value of land?
Sure.
That's from K.
Sure. Kay, I don't know if, especially if you live in Texas right now, a lot of developers are purchasing land from the owners, right?
Hmm.
Or from those who have the land. So, like I shared in 2021, last year, when we made that purchase, that piece of land was about $10,000. And, we were approached by an individual, and we were also approached by a company. The company was a developer who wanted to develop that particular area, and I mean, that was a what? So that was a $30,000 difference in that short amount of time. So based on the type of land you purchase, it also um, counts, because for me to based on the type of land. But let's say if you do residential, then also you have to take into consideration the expansion of going into the rural land, and for them to build houses and all of that. But a lot of times it's very good. Kay, I will be giving a website to Pastor Nathan so that you can also look, and there's actually a calculator for you to be able to play with numbers on this
Hmm.
particular website. So if you purchase for, I don't know, 10 or 12,000, and you sell, it's going to go ahead and let you know the factors that appreciate the value of land. For my RV lot, which is all it is, it's a piece of land that somebody comes to park their RV. It's in an RV park. So what
Mm.
will, in terms of how much I charge, I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm going to share a little bit more personal information, Pastor Nathan.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
it's
If
I
you're
charge,
comfortable with it, that's fine. As long as you're
sure.
helping us. Mhm.
So for me, it's 150 a day, right? And I'm booked pretty
For
much.
somebody to park an RV on your land.
Yes, I'm going to tell you the factors. So I'm
Mm.
booked pretty much all year round. And so the factors, based on it does have a property management. You can choose to manage on your own, which I do not time, or you can have the property manager do the management. So if you have like a barbecue pit on there, is it just raw dirt, or have you paved it? These are some of the factors that increases the value. And at this particular point, for me, all I've done is paved it. I have not included any benches, any barbecue pit like some of my other neighbors who own the RV lot that
Mm.
they have also done, you know.
Okay. So Matilda is asking is talking about zoning. So if I
Oh,
buy
yes.
a particular land, you're talking about, that's a very interesting business venture of people parking their RVs and they collect rent or whatever it is called. Uh, the zoning aspect of land. Can can I just buy land and advertise that people can put their RVs here? How does it work?
But you would look up the zoning before you made that purchase. So let me give you an example. I'm not sure where, like I said, everybody is, but in the DFW Texas area,
Mhm.
zoning is pretty strict and tight, right? But the more you go out to Ovella, Texas, the more you're going out to rural land,
Rural lands, as you get out
yeah,
of
where
the
it's not
city
so close
limits.
to the city, then zoning is less restrictive. So at one point, Midlothian had a it's this is all in Texas,
Mhm.
had a very loose zoning, where you could just, and don't forget, you can also apply to, if needed, you could petition to change zoning, but had a very loose zoning laws, but now because it's become a bigger city, they're more restrictive, right?
Okay.
But before you made the purchase, you would need to look at what type of zoning, what is allowed,
Mm.
so you wouldn't just buy land the same way you would need to know about flood and the history of the land. You wouldn't just make that purchase. But I mean, that whatever land you purchase, you're going to let you know this is residential. Oh,
Mm.
and let me share this based on where you purchase land, because I do have a property and it's more like in a gated community, right?
Yes.
They give you what is allowed and what is not. And then you have raw land. Raw land is just land that's out there and it's for sale, right? And
Mhm.
those tend to just be very loose in the zoning, but they do let you know if this is residential or commercial. And don't forget, the city also lets you know what's allowed, what's not allowed. But these are things you would need to look up prior to the land purchase.
Mhm. Interesting. One of the things that has captured everybody's attention here, which I would like you to address, and then we'll go to Kay is asking another question here. But how does the leasing of the land work, Thelma? How does it work?
It's land is not that much difference when you do housing. There's just a
Hmm.
few things. It's the same way, because I do the contracts, so it's very similar. But here's the other thing I wanted to share real fast when we're talking about leasing. When you're making land purchase, it's also important. Is this surface up, right? They'll let you know this is surface level going, or is it everything, meaning that also the underneath, the minerals and the possible
Mm.
oil that may be there. Now I'm gonna let y'all know most of the time is going to be surface level going. Reason being is companies and businesses, they've gotten smart to understand that Texas may possibly have mineral rights and oil, which
Okay.
you can still make those purchases, but keep in mind it might be a little bit more. When I'm
So
talking,
you can restrict your, can we call it, is it called a lease? You can
it's not
restrict.
you restricting, it's the land that's available for you to make that purchase. Is they'll let you know this is for surface, meaning it's just a surface, the land itself go and up, nothing underneath the land belongs to
Mm,
you, right?
okay. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
All
And
right.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So here Bella is saying, so I want to raise cows. Is our get can I possibly lease land from a farmer to raise my cows?
Oh, Bella, I that's something similar of what I'm actually trying to do right now. And Bella, it looks like you're a woman of color. That's why I encouraged you
Bella is
that.
a man.
Oh, I am so sorry. Please forgive me. Either way, you're a person of color. So here's the thing. If you email me, I'll send you the program that the United States. If you're in the U.S., I apologize.
Yes, he's
Uh,
in Atlanta. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, that they have that program to get more people of color into farming and purchase farmland. And the specific of your question is, could you lease it? Yes, you can. There's actually a lot of small farmers who are using somebody else's land for their cows to be grazing on.
Mm,
And that's, yeah. So I'm excited if that's something you do choose to do. There's just not that, like I said, many people who look like us in the game.
mm. Okay. Let's do K again. Can you get a farmland and it is possibly flipped to a residential commercial?
It's like I said, it's based on the county. And what I have found is, especially rural counties, those
Mm,
that are not close to the city, they're actually more flexible than you think when it comes to the zoning laws and the requirements. Where the stricter is where you have your urban cities, the suburbans, the cities, because you can't be in big Dallas and have cows, but there's a property not too far from where I live, and what I saw is that the developer is residential, and I saw that the developer, because you know how the city has to inform the residents of what's when there's a zoning change or a petition for a change, and the developer is buy houses, but the developer is requesting for it to be changed to commercial, and they're granting that to him.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
Richard is asking, so how deep are you allowed to buy? I don't know. Probably you understand
I'm
this.
not sure what that question means, how deep you're allowed to buy. You buy according to your pocket. You can buy however you want. I'm not really sure,
I
Richard.
think I think it means if there is oil or something, how deep down
How deep?
the
Yeah, probably
Sure.
yeah,
So
maybe approach it from that angle, Thelma. How deep are you allowed to buy?
sure, Richard, as deep as your pockets is. So yeah, you can purchase mineral rights, y'all. Y'all can purchase mineral rights. You can purchase land with oil. Just know
Mhm.
that it's gonna cost more than, like, if you're starting off and you want to start at a 5 to 7, 10 under $10,000 lot. You know what I'm trying to say? But yeah, you can purchase oil if you've got like 50, 70K and you're willing
Mhm.
to make monthly, because a lot of them can make the monthly. I want to stress this: monthly payments. It's
Okay.
not a lot of them. You don't have to bring that, upfront cash. You see what I'm
Mhm.
trying to say? Like
Mm.
if it's 50,000, you don't need to. Like in Africa, you have to. A lot of times, you have to bring 50,000 upfront, so you can do the monthly payments and things of that sort. So it's just how deep your pockets are.
Okay, before we continue with our discussion, let me just make sure I was sharing. I just want you to look at this term and make sure that the email is correct. Where is it? Here. That's correct, right?
Sure, yeah, that's my personal email. That's fine. That's correct. It's fine.
Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody, I don't want don't want to give out the wrong email and then the emails are bouncing back. It can be
I
very
hear you.
frustrating.
I have a
Uh
question.
yes, Chairman.
Yeah. So very interesting, by the way. And I've got, I think, 1, 2, 3, up to 10 questions here. So I can't ask. Yeah, for real, for real. One of the very interesting point you made, our late president, Mr. Sata, in Zambia, also made it. God has stopped creating land. Um, so we might as well, whatever we have,
Mhm.
make sure you manage it properly. You have an interesting, let me say, story to sell or story to tell. You want a lot of people who look like you to get into this industry.
Mhm.
So, what is your plan? What is your
Oh,
plan?
sure.
Meaning, how much do you want to grow this movement? Because we want to be part of it, not just be. These are not some of programs we should only do on Saturday, and then we
Mhm.
forget about it after you are
Mhm.
gone.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like the word
So
movement.
yes,
So,
yes.
I want to say thank you, Chairman, because I also like the word
Chairman,
movement.
yeah, I like that.
I'm playing. I like the word movement too, because on a more serious note,
Mhm.
when I went to the land conference about, I think it's 2 weeks ago, Pastor Nathan, I 2, 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
um, I was very sad. I was sad because I was in a room with like 700 Caucasian, mostly men. There was
Listen to this
women too,
point,
though.
Georgia. Listen to this
And
point.
there was exactly, because I took my brother, and he can attest to this. There was exactly 3 by invitation, but I took my brother. That's 4 people who look like this. The next population or ethnicity that was there was the Asians.
Of
Mhm.
course, yeah.
Boy, hats to them,
Mule mfabake
because they don't play like that.
hambo.
They don't play. But we are not in the game. And there's so many there's so much benefits. And this is where my pastorally, my other thing is the churches. You know, when you have a woman that's a single woman and she's struggling, and so and we're able to help, and let's say she gets a lot, $5,000-7,000, right? And let's say she holds it 6 months to 1 year. She's able to flip, meaning she's able to sell that land and make some money and maybe get out of poverty. My issue with the land is it's on so many levels. I feel like it's a way for of course for us to create wealth, for us also to multiply. All of us have, gone through so much just to be in abroad. Y'all know it's not easy and it's not hard to raise kids abroad. And it's apart from being able to leave something like my mom, the legacy, but also financially, whether you're going to be leasing and getting monthly income, or you're going to be selling and then using that money for something else. But for me, I think about the single mom or just somebody who's trying to start off. And then think about your children. If my sister, the youngest one, she's 27, and when she was 25, my mom forced her to purchase land, and she was upset about that at that time. Here's the deal. By the time she's my age, I'm 12 years older than her. By the time she's my age, think about the wealth of that piece of property. I just want y'all to, we pray and we're like, God bless it. Da, da, da. When God opens the door, take it. People, I don't know how much, take it. The second thing I want to share, and I'm going to wrap it up, is there's one more thing I forgot. It's very important. When you shared about the movement, one of the things I learned in the land conference is I was wondering, well, I mean, do white people just have that much money, or do the Asians just have money? No, they don't. They're like me and you, similar size. No, they're just like us. But what they're doing is they're using groups, and that's one of the things I'm doing to make their farmland purchase. It's very hard for an individual to come up with 70,000, 100,000 plus, but I'm doing a group. This is what I've learned from them, of 10 people, a group of 5 people. So let's say all 5, so that the capital that each individual invests is low, right? So if you have a property, I'm just using this as an example, that costs 50,000 US dollars for those who are abroad, and you have 5 people, that's 10,000 or less each individual. And of course, in America, you have lawyers and CPAs who would handle the legal aspects of it, right? The paperwork. Or you could do a property. And that's what the Asians were doing. I was so impressed. Y'all, I just stood there staring at them. They have a group of 10, and they don't, and one is maybe a janitor, and he's like, my salary's 30,000. They're not making like money like y'all are thinking. But what you're doing is they have 10 people making a purchase. So now they have collateral, and that looks good for the bank. So then each 10 uses that to make their next purchase individually. And that's how you start the game. And when God opens the door, people, take the door, because we all know that prices are going up. And you may not be able to afford if you're saying I'm going to wait 5 years, right? You may not be able to afford it, especially in Texas. The raw land used to be $800, $1,000 an acre. Now it's getting pricier and pricier because you have Elon Musk and Bill Gates buying up the farmlands. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. And I'll leave it alone. But I am passionate about it, because when I went, there was no one. That is so sad in the United States, and we have 4 in a group of like 700. You saw the picture I posted, Pastor Nathan.
Yes, that's
It
what,
was very
Roger,
sad.
that's
sad.
what prompted me that's what caught my attention.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on here? Something like that. Anyway, our time is up. The reason I've put Thelma's email address there, you can get in touch with her. Roger, I like the word you use, movement. I think let's start a movement in this direction. Please, let me say what I said in my introductory remarks. People, our kids are growing. They don't know anything about Ibex Hill or Riverside. Please, okay? Don't force them to invest where they don't know. if you are kukabushi or whatever you call it, kundolo, kokambo, your son doesn't know that. Let him buy land in New York, the place where he knows. Thank you, Thelma.
All right. Thank y'all so much.
We'll be in touch, Miss Thelma.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need to get in touch with her and start this movement. Coming up is Kasulova. He's got a very interesting guest with us today.
Okay.
And next week, Roger, we are talking to Dr. Akashamba Twambukstalewanika. He's going to be talking about this issue of, can we what's the word? Self-manage or campaign, people accounting for their wealth. The reason I'm bringing him is because he was one of the few people who resigned for MMD on principle because of corruption. Okay, everybody, let's tune back in. Coming up is Open Forum with Kasulova.
Zambia Blog Talk Radio.